Like Turkish people say Ayşen. Yeah.
Like,
Hello, guys.
is that a name, like a Turkish name, or is that
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that they like a word?
Ayşen, it's a Turkish name.
Hey, guys. How are
But
you?
yeah.
Very
Hello,
interesting.
Carol.
No, that's cool. So it's a
Hey,
nickname.
what up? Hey, gang.
Hi,
Hey,
Carol.
good morning, Maya. How are you?
I'm good.
All right, is everyone here? We're missing most of our Penn State students, but yeah, we're missing
A little context is that it is Labor Day in the US. Unlike the rest of the world, the US and Canada celebrate it in September. So that
But
might
it's
have something to
supposed
do
to
with it.
be. So in the United States, it's supposed to be a holiday weekend. Most often, most people have off work and schools are always closed. And some universities have decided to stay open on Labor Day to prevent students from traveling, going home, and coming back with like more cases of COVID. But yeah, so like Penn State students, what's that feel like to not have Labor Day off?
I'm tired. Like, really tired. Because, like, even though, like, just in my apartment complex, we probably hang out with our neighbors, like, every single day. Just, like, we didn't know them before we got here, but, like, they were here last night, and I'm just, like, I'm tired.
Mm.
Did you
What
see
do
a
you
So me,
mean by
Oh, go
tired?
ahead.
Sorry.
I was just up really late. Like, we were just, like, playing Uno. Like, we weren't even doing anything, like, exciting. And I was the only one with an early class, and I was like, yeah, like, I'll be fine. I'm not fine.
Care,
Like, I'm tired.
care to explain what's Uno for the rest of us? I mean,
Oh,
personally, I know.
yeah. I don't have my Uno cards, but it's like a card game. There's 4 colors and numbers, and you just match them up. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. It's usually very competitive.
Mohammed, you had Uno on hand, like not even just like you know what it is. You literally could pull it out of your pocket.
There it is.
That was so
no,
nice.
is
We are
it's
also
actually
playing Uno.
I think
yeah,
all of
it's
us
very
stole from his
exciting.
deck.
Actually, last year during the dialogues, when we like come a bit early, Muhammad used to like, come guys, let's play. It was kind of
We're
fun.
betting big tonight, boys. We're betting big. Go for
Yeah.
broke.
That's funny. Um, wait, just another question to Penn State students. Hey, Tolvia. Hey, y'all. So our dialogues kicked off today. Tolvia's coming in from having monitored all the dialogues. So that's exciting. So some students in other sections of this class are actually facilitating right now. It's pretty exciting.
And doing a really great job. I just want to say that.
Yes. Oh,
So
that's
if you all have
awesome.
nerves and jitters and all of that, you will be awesome.
That is exciting. Let's get started with our class. Talking about facilitation. You're going to be participators today in class. So this is a part of our class or our semester where this class, which is 297, you're going to start for it to see divided into different parts. Some days will be dialogue. So today we're kicking it off with a dialogue, as in you will be participators. A participator is not just any participant; it's an activated participant. So we call them participators. You'll notice us use that word throughout the semester instead of saying participants. At least with this class, because you're here for a reason and you chose to study facilitated dialogue. Okay, so Emma and I are going to be your facilitators today. Is everyone ready to fully participate, like just be in dialogue mode? Okay. So the part of the dialogue that we're going to facilitate today is the who part of the dialogue. If you've studied your signpost, you will notice that the dialogue has three parts: who, what, and reflection. And going back to the vision of like, what are we building together? You know, when we made the analogy of like when you're building a house, you have to know what you're building before you can start using the tools. For a good portion of the next couple of weeks, we're going to focus on the who part of the dialogue so that when we get to the what part of the dialogue, you've mastered asking the kind of questions that happen in the who. Even though when you're facilitating, you're going through the entire signpost. In class, we're going to start by focusing on the who. So you'll notice that we're going to work with the signpost that you have currently. That is the active one. But we're only going to do the first part of the dialogue today in class. So still fully participate in that way. All right, Emma, ready to facilitate?
Yep. All right. So I'm going to kick out the prompt. All right. Oh, are we doing this? So sorry, are we doing signpost question? Oh, okay, we're still doing that one. All right, sounds good. So what is something in your neighborhood that people around you wish wasn't there?
Can I go? Okay, so this is common in most neighborhoods, but we have what's called generators in the neighborhood because we have two types of electricity: the electricity that the government provides, and then the electricity that this generator provides. So like everyone complains about the sound, about the CO2 emissions, about like just the pollution that comes with the generator. So that's something I guess my whole neighborhood wants to get rid of.
In your neighborhood, do a lot of people work at the generator?
No, it's usually owned by like one family and like they're responsible for it. And they have like a couple workers around the clock that have to stay with the generator because as soon as like the government electricity turns off, this one has to like be on.
I have a question. By any chance, can you like describe what the generators look like? Like you said it's pretty common, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
Can you repeat your question?
Oh, I'm just like confused on like you're saying like these big generators and they're really loud, but can you like try and like paint a picture of like how big they are or like how loud they are just because I don't really know like what you're talking about.
I mean, if you're sitting in your home and the generator's like outside, you'll probably hear it no matter what. And they're like, I don't know, like industrial generators, like the big ones, the very big ones that can power like a whole building because they have to power a neighborhood. So they are really big ones and they're very loud and just like annoying to the neighborhood, but essential at the same time.
It is nearly as big as a regular SUV, nearly. A bigger, smaller.
So you know what she's talking about, Karwan?
Yeah, I actually I owned one a while back, nearly 5 years ago.
You owned one of the generators that Shahad is talking about?
Yeah, we back in Kirkuk, my father was in charge of nearly 20 houses, and the government gave us a generator, and I used to operate on it.
It's like a big machine doing high sound and doing a very bad pollution. We have a problem with the private generation. Some homes uses private generation because even a public generation, it's not all the time. Maybe it's cutting 1 hour or 2 hours. So some houses going to buy a big generation to private house. So this is the
I'm
big
wondering.
problem.
For you, what was the original answer you were going to say before Shahad brought up generators? Like, how would you answer that question originally?
We have a problem with kids. I don't know how many kids doing
Wait,
in
okay.
1 year. Every neighborhood they have 4 or 5 kids. They are going to outside and make a very noise. We can now when I am going online with you, I am close the door and window because every sounds in the outside coming inside, and we are very noisy with this with this
How old are
game.
the kids?
It's around 3 years or 4 years, 5 years. I don't know. It's like
Do you
this.
have a
It's
do you have a lot of
step.
do you have a lot of young families in your neighborhood?
Yes, but it's very. It's just one neighborhood or two. All the time we have every my friends here. I am sure they have a neighborhood. They have a very kids in the home. I don't know how.
So there's a family in my neighborhood that I know they have 18 children.
Oh,
Wow.
that
Do
is
you live very close to Esra? Do you
Oh,
live
I
very
in
close?
a different part of the city.
Okay.
So can you just say where are you
I'm
talking
from
about again?
I'm from Rania, and Isra is from Erbil. We are in in a different city.
Okay.
May I go for my answer?
Yeah.
actually
Well, I live.
before you say that, I just have one thing to say. I am currently locked in my room. My sister came by and she has 4 children, and the first thing the younger one did, she poured half a glass of water on the router, and I've been on the past half an hour blow drying my router.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, we have the same sister.
So it sounds like most families in your communities have like big families. Like it's normal to have 3, 4 kids in one family.
Yeah, actually, the smallest family in my neighborhood is 4 children. The smallest one.
Okay.
Also,
Okay.
Carol, I have a sister who has 3 children. So,
Hey, 1 second, team. So I'd like to hear from some of our students at Penn State as well. What's something in your neighborhood that you wish wasn't there?
And make sure, please don't say the first thing that came into your mind too. Like you don't have to go with like generators or children, go with the first thing.
I think I like looked at which time last time I shared like being home, but in like my Penn State neighborhood, I think like we all can agree like we just wish COVID wasn't a thing. I miss football games. I miss going out. I miss like everything of like being a college student in the U.S. Just like that got ripped away, and I think everyone would agree with me on that. So yeah.
What's one thing that would be different today that you would be doing if like COVID didn't exist, etc.?
Anything. Probably it's a Monday, so probably seeing a volleyball game. Me and my friends would always go do that too. Or just like I would study as big groups in the library, and now it's like even in the hub. The hub is like the main like center at Penn State where like they have like food and like just tables to study. Now like the most you can have at a table is 3 at a time, and like you're just so far apart it's not even like worth going to the hub anymore. So just like anything. Or like even being in class, like I miss going to a classroom. So yeah.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Sure, Mohammed, sure, go ahead.
All right. To Maya, actually, what was this place, the hub? What is it? Could you explain it a little bit more to us?
Yeah, so the hub is like Penn State's a huge campus, and the hub's probably like the most central building. It has like it has food, so like our normal dining halls are like basic kind of food, but the hub kind of has like more going out food like Chipotle, Burger King, and it's pretty big, and it has like 3 sets of stairs or like 3 floors. It's just like a huge central location at Penn State to like study or just hang out. Yeah.
Thanks for giving us a glimpse into what you're kind of missing. It really stood out to me that you said like all the things that of being a US college student that really just stood out to me, but I really do want to hear from some other students from the US. Or not necessarily from the US, but who are at Penn State.
Who are at Penn State. And yeah, Maya has really hit like the nail in the head because COVID has disrupted just like every facet of the college experience. I actually
can you instead of building off of Maya just for now, what is your response to the original question?
My response to the original question, I was brainstorming a good response because I don't know if I should answer it as like related to my state college neighborhood or like my Brazilian neighborhood. But then because
let's do the latter because we kind of heard about Penn State. I'd love to know like just a glimpse into your world, like where you come from. So how about the latter?
Well, this is gonna sound like a paradoxical answer because I would probably say all the schools that we have in my neighborhood. It's a big like concentration with something like 3 or 4 schools within like a 2-3 block radius. So during noon and then during like 6 p.m., it's like the worst traffic in the city because all the parents are coming to like pick up the kids.
And what city? Sorry, what city are you referring to?
So this is Porto Alegre in South Brazil. But the reason why we moved there was so we would be close to the schools so I could walk there. So my parents didn't have to come and like pick me up with their car. Like I could just walk over to school and then walk back. So it didn't affect me as much. But I definitely believe that several people within my neighborhood who were older and did not have their kids at school would be pretty upset about having that amount of traffic caused by the schools in the neighborhood.
Why was it important that you could walk to school? What was the deciding factors about that?
A deciding factor why I could walk to school. I was probably asking about it a lot. I think we moved there when I was like in 6th grade and I really wanted to have my own house keys. So I think that if I was, close enough that I could walk to and from school, that was kind of a good like excuse for me to get my own house keys. A funny story is that my first day of 6th grade, which was the first day that I walked to school, I didn't learn this for years. But later, my sister told me that my mom actually like stalked me like in her car, like on the street, like to slowly like check and make sure that I got to school okay. And I only got to learn about this like after middle school, like starting in high school. It is mostly a quiet neighborhood. Like it did feel mostly safe, but yeah, moms are always a little overprotective.
Thanks for that little glimpse. Just one more question because I really want to hear from Maddie next. I really want to hear from. But one more question is like, where did you move from? Were you always in the same city?
Well, I did move twice. So when I was 7, I moved from São Paulo, the largest city in Brazil, to Porto Alegre. And then we lived in an apartment for a year before, well, maybe a little bit more than a year, maybe like 2 years. And then we moved again to this house, which was closer to the schools. So those were kind of like some of the major moves that I did between like ages 6 and 10.
Very interesting. Thanks for giving us those details. I really want to hear, Maddie, what's something in your neighborhood that people around you wish wasn't there?
I definitely say the quality of our roads. Like that's the immediate thing that jumped to my mind that like everyone consistently complains about. Cause like, I don't know, where I live, just like the potholes are like never fixed.
Where do you live?
In Parksburg, it's like in between Lancaster and Chester County and Pennsylvania.
And where would you frame that as like in the United States in relative to?
It's like northeastern United States. Like where I live, it's really just like farms.
Okay.
So I don't like they're like roads are kind of like I'd say small. Like like you could like some roads you could maybe get like one car, and then like if there's another car you have to like kind of like go, like you have to be on the edge. Like there isn't enough times for some, but like others there are. But then like if there's like an Amish like buggy, then like it's difficult.
What's an
What?
Amish buggy? What's an Amish
Oh,
buggy?
okay. So like there's like a religious sect of people that like, sorry, that's my cat. If you hear jingling, he's up here. And so they live in more like a traditional like lifestyle, so they don't really like use technology, but like as like the 21st century has progressed, they've like some people have, some people like haven't added more, like they might use like a car, or like they'll have a phone, or they might like have a generator.
What do they drive? Like when you say Amish buggy, how is that different to what
They
you
have
drive?
like a cart or something, and there's horses attached basically. But like it has a top. Like I know some carts don't have like a top on top of it. Like they're open, and others aren't. But yeah.
You said that you live near a bunch of farms. Do your parents work on a farm or own a farm?
No, they're both nurses. So
They're both nurses.
Can I ask a question to Mari?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mari, are you familiar with the like Amish sect? What I know about the Amish is when the children turns 18, they like give them a 5-day chance to explore the modern life, and whether they choose to live in the modern life or get back to live in the within the Amish's territory. Is that true, or like?
Yeah, it's from my understanding, it's like it's not like a particular amount of time. It's like some people might do like a month or like longer, and then they can like choose. And it's not like I feel like it's not always 18. It's like kind of like I feel like each family has their own like age that, or like time that they're like, okay, you can do your Rumspringa, which is what it's called. It's like I don't know what it translates to because I don't speak Pennsylvania Dutch, but yeah,
so
it's just they go wild.
Wait 1 second. So this is we're still trying to figure out and find out more information about who's in the dialogue and not go into a topic per se. So one last question, Maddie, for you would be just how do you get around the city? Like, and can you like Victor, could you walk to school? Like how do people where you live get around?
Everyone pretty much just drove. Like there isn't any public transportation.
Okay.
I mean, like there's a train in town, but no one really uses that.
So you would say like the average
basically.
family, you need a car. Okay.
Yeah. And we're not like I live like maybe 5 minutes away from my school, but like you're not allowed to walk to school, or like you're not allowed to walk home. Like if you missed your bus, you'd have to wait for someone to get you.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like they and if you like they found out you had walked home from school, you'd get in trouble. Which yeah.
Fascinating. Very cool.
All right. Let's hear from some.
Is there more time so I can say something?
Yeah, Moment, go for it.
Oh. So one thing came across my mind is that when we were like children, we kind of had like unstable life in terms of like security. So like we would go just like normal children to play like soccer, and like shootouts would happen, and or like a suicide bomber or a car bomber would just explode, and we'll just like hide somewhere or just want to get back home. Like I always bring this kind of intense stories because like this is kind of like how our perspectives and lives like were shaped. Like I still remember one day I got back home and my mother was waiting for me. So she was opening the door, and all of a sudden, like a group of like militants opened the door of their car and started shooting at like the Iraqi military. So my mother closed the door and stayed there alone. So I had to go back home to school again. So I'd say like I had a pretty rough childhood, but yeah, I
Moment.
kind of like, yeah.
You said you were like playing soccer with friends. How old were you when this was happening?
Let's say I was like a fifth grader, so I was like 10 or so. Yeah.
And so how can you describe a little bit about just what like you already did a really good job of painting a picture of like what you would see, but like what would it be like walking to school for you? You were saying like going back to school. What was like an average morning of walking to school while all this was going on?
Um, it's probably gonna be weird because like it's something that we were numb to. So when we went to school, we didn't think of like something bad that's gonna happen because it just happened every single day and it became a part of our lives. So we just went to school, and if something bad happened, like after an hour, people would forget everything because again they are numb to it and they no longer feel what that might cause. So it pretty much was normalized, I say.
Where in the moment? Where was this too? Where was this happening? What city?
In Mosul.
In Mosul. And how?
Mosul. Yeah.
Yeah. And what? How about the cities like surrounding you? Like when you say it was just happening in Mosul, like where? How was it impacting the cities around you?
So Mosul is like kind of between Baghdad and Kurdistan. So Kurdistan had nothing to do with everything was going around. So it was stable, safe. But for Baghdad, it was pretty much the same. Like people used to be kidnapped or killed overnight. So the impact was kind of general. So like Mosul didn't have impact on other cities because our cities were already impacted.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Moment.
If there was just like one way to answer, what's something you wish that wasn't in your neighborhood? Like, how would you summarize what you're saying? Like, what is the thing that you're talking about?
Is this for me?
Yeah.
Like if I were to sum up this, I would say just like things would happen all of a sudden when we were children. Like you never expected how your day is gonna be.
We still have time for some more people, so I'm looking at.
Actually,
Can I jump?
oh, okay, go Aishan. Sorry.
Yeah. My answer to this question is the biggest problem that I have with the neighborhood is parking cars. They don't know how they parking cars because here in Erbil we don't have a good space to parking or something like garage in our house. And before 2 years we changed our house because of this reason. Only in my family we have 6 cars, so we don't have enough places. Yeah, we are working in different places, so when we grow up till 18, 19, we should to work to pay to collect money, and my dad and my mom, they help you to buy a new cars.
How many people are in your family?
We are 6 children and my parents, but 2 of them are married. Yeah.
Is that common for people in your community to each have a car for each one of their children?
Actually now, yeah. Yeah.
And so, well, I'm thinking about Maddie because Maddie was like, yeah, you need a car to live where I live. Like, you can't just walk. So what's it, are cars, like, is it necessary to have this many cars? Like, what, I'm trying to see, like, how do you get to places around where you live? Could you walk?
That was for me or for Mary?
For you, for you. Because Maddie said,
Look,
no, we need a car to get around. So if you're saying
yeah,
parking is an
I think
issue,
she
what?
lives in farm, something like that. Yeah,
Hmm.
but no, here in Erbil, actually, in Kurdish nation, uh, they learn you when you grow up, you should to buy a car. For example, we don't have enough energy, even we need to go to market. For example, every time my mom
How
says,
far? How far is the market from your house?
it's like less than 1,500 meters, something like that. Yeah. My mom says, "Oh, Asha, you are in the night doing gym and no more energy to going to market in a walking, for example. Why are you doing exercise at night and you don't have enough energy to go to walking?" Yeah.
Yeah.
So till now, I have a problem with the parking, the neighborhood.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just really quick, where do you drive? Like, what is the job that you do?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
I have university. Also, I'm working in hospital as a volunteer teacher.
Mhm. That's such a
Interesting.
different answer from Moments. Like, we went from being afraid to being kidnapped or suicide bombers or being afraid to parking, like parking cars being like a struggle. Just, just fascinating. Like, just so close in location, but so different to what you
Yeah.
see.
Don't worry, I'm going back to that, if I may speak.
Please do.
Also, I want to say I have a same story with a Victor when he said, "My mom, it was behind you when you walking to school." I have a same story in the first day of university because in my route to university it's full of van. يعني Karwan and Shahd Muhammad, they know how you can drive in this way. Yeah, I remember a first day of university, my dad was behind me, and when I when I came to university, he called me, Asha, where are you? I said, oh, I'm in the garage of university. He said, uh, just look in back. I said, wow, dad, why you come with me? He said, yeah, I'm scared about you.
So
Yeah.
I think we have time maybe for one more. I know Karwan, you wanted to go. Okay.
Should I, if, like, is there anybody else?
We actually have time for more than one more, so go for it. We'll have.
Yeah, come on, go
I
for
was
it.
wrong.
Yeah, no. Actually, we started to talk about things in society that you don't want to see there. I know what I say is kind of big, but it is kind of necessary. So uh, most of, not most actually, you can count by hand. Women, myself, and I don't know who others who grew up in conflicted areas. But I grew up in south of Kirkuk, a place which is called Hawija. Mu'min knows. We were 15
Oh
minutes
wow.
away from Hawija. Hawija was the cradle of Al Qaeda and terrorism. So for a child, when you grow up, uh, especially in these kind of places, you will have really you will not have a lot of childish memories like when you play and do these kind of things, and those memories that you have you will cherish through your entire life. So it is kind of big that I say this, but I wish that our society was clear of bombings and conflict and things like that. I myself,
Karwan,
yeah.
actually, so we asked Moment to do this too, but you're describing a lot of things, and I can. How would you say that as an answer to the question, like what's something in your neighborhood people around you wish wasn't there? Like what words would you put to answering that question?
Actually, It is not my word. This every Iraqi citizen's word. They wish that the conflict would end. This sectarianism, this terror that terrorized Iraqi people for decades, not decades, for centuries. It like Iraq. I myself am a law student and I am obligated to read history. Iraq have never seen more than 60 years of peace. There were only war and war and war and war. So we don't have a generation who grew up without war. So everybody wishes so the society were without a conflict, without a war. Uh, I myself 2 times were nearly killed by bombs. Once I was sleeping and once I was studying in my school. So just imagine that. So that is my answer.
May I go on?
Actually, before you go, Raza, we've been hearing, just to balance things, we've really been hearing a lot from like Iraq, Kurdistan, and just we've been talking a lot about there's an assumption, I think, that the people in Iraq and Kurdistan have been the only ones exposed to conflict in conflict zones, and that is an assumption in the room right now. I don't know if anyone else actually has been. And I really do want to hear from like a Penn State student right now. Like, how would you answer that original question?
Wait, can I speak on something someone else said that relates to what you just said as well? It was, I don't remember who said it, but they said that they were numb to like all the conflict happening. And I remember talking about this in high school a lot, where like we're numb, but like on the other side of things, like we hear about airstrikes and stuff happening all the time, and it's like such a normal occurrence that we don't even like look past the layer to see what was happening, because it's like something that happens and that we're told about so often that it like doesn't even strike close to home. That makes sense.
Yeah. Way to connect the other side of your experience to that. Carlos, we haven't heard from you yet. What's something in your neighborhood that you wish wasn't there?
I was thinking hard about it. I want to say, I feel like I grew up in 2 different places. So up until I was 14, I would say probably there are a lot of people as you're driving to, let's say, the stores or stuff like that, you'll see a lot of beggars. And I feel like that was always something. And maybe, I mean, there was crime. It wasn't anything too insane, but just this general feel of being unsafe. And then once I moved at around 15, honestly, I love the area, but there's still like a
Where
little.
did you move to?
It's a town called Garfield, and then before that was East Orange. They're both in Jersey, but they're real different vibes. Like even Garfield, it's not as safe as, let's say, State College, but it's still like a beautiful spot. So I don't know, like I can't think of anything I would want to change, but
When you say safe, what are the factors that would make like State College safe or Garfield safer than the previous place?
I mean, I've just never felt unsafe at like to any extent, but that could be as a male too in State College, as opposed in Garfield. Even still, there are times where I would feel unsafe, and then in East Orange growing up, it's like it just wasn't the best area at all. So
Well, I'm assuming for someone like Momin or Kurvan, safe might mean that there's no bombing going on, or so. Like, what would safe mean in your community? Like you can, this community is safe because.
yeah, I can't relate to that at all. Of course, I can't claim that struggle at all. But I mean, growing up, like there were like a few instances like kids were getting. Well, okay, perfect. Growing up, I guess my house got broken into a few times, and like I grew up single parent, I grew up in like a poor like neighborhood, so we didn't really have like that type of security in a way, and nothing ever like I mean stuff was taken, but no lives were lost in like any of the encounters. So I can't really
Mm.
say anything like that, but
Actually, Carlos, and it's okay that you don't relate because we're actually just trying to get a sense for the differences between what you see.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that really vivid description.
Emma, can I ask a question?
Well, wait, I'm gonna say actually depends because we're running out of time in this part of the dialogue, and I want to make sure we hear from everyone first. I'm like, wait, Felix, you're like eluding us. We haven't heard from you at all, unless I'm mistaken. How would you answer that question? And I feel like we haven't heard from Shahid. Shahid, have you responded to that question? Oh, okay. So she has. So Felix, and then Razar as well. I know you were trying to talk.
Yeah, it's very interesting listening to everyone. For me, it'll be racism. That's something that a lot of people don't want, especially me.
Can you just say a tiny bit more? How do you see racism existing in your neighborhood?
It's kind of interesting because you wouldn't think somebody is racist whenever they're in front of many people. I've experienced racism myself. It's not that cool. I don't know how to explain it. I think
Where is this? What neighborhood are you talking about?
it's kind of difficult to talk about neighborhoods. I've been moving from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania, so like 3 different cities. And even in between, like it's kind of everywhere. You can't really escape from it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Can you perhaps, for maybe someone that might not know, like what is racism in the United States, like what's something that you may experience, or what do you see from your like world that tells you that this was an experience that had racism?
Can I add something to do with that before?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting how like big racism is here as compared to where I'm from. I guess because maybe I was younger, because there are a lot of microaggressions regarding it where I'm from. But I feel like here is more open and it's more like accepted within certain groups.
Can I ask a question, please?
Let's have Razar respond first, please, to the original question. All right. I promise that you will get the next part of the dialogue. You'll get the chance to ask each other questions. Razar, what would you say?
Well, in my city, we have an urban city, and some people are living in my neighborhood that are they're living kind of like a rural style, like raising chickens, raising ducks and stuff, and it's literally the road next to our home, and it really smells so like birds shit, and it's kind of disgusting, and all of my neighborhood hates that, but we cannot do anything with it. We are telling them it disgusts the place and it smells very bad. Could you please take them away or something like that? But they are still raising them.
So, does your family raise birds as well, or does your family do something else?
No, we are not raising chickens and stuff. We have some pets and something to live in our house. Like you have some birds in a cage, but it doesn't disturb anyone. It's just in our home. But for them, they are just leaving them outside of their home.
Mm-hmm. So how would you describe like what do a lot of people do in your community? Like what is like a major occupation that a lot of people do there?
Raising chickens.
Okay.
So I'm just curious to know, like, if you're from the country or from the city.
in a, you can see a sub-district, something like that. Rania is not a city, but it's a smaller city. I don't know how to say it.
So let's
It's
say
a
like the streets are paved, like it's developed, let's say.
it's part of a city, and it also contains many sub-districts.
All right. So if this was to continue, like your 90-minute dialogues, Emma and I would now do the transition to the topic. But we're not doing that right now because we're going to really talk about this. But before we go into your debrief, so Emma, just how do you think that went?
It was interesting.
Wait a minute. Wait 1 second. So we're just modeling a debrief between Emma and I after a dialogue. So it's just watch Emma and I just quickly debrief. So Emma, what was that like?
Just to confirm, this is what happens at the end of the dialogue, correct?
At the very end. Very end.
Yep, after all the participants have left. So you've all left. Okay. Not really, but you're out. You know, I thought it was so full of sociological information, and it was really hard not to want to travel down a certain path. Like I definitely felt that many different times.
Yeah, there were a lot of moments that Zach could have been the dialogue, but I had to like make the difficult decision to no, we have to keep asking, we have to get more information so that when we, get to the topic, we know who people are.
Yeah, something I really wanted to like that moment where I could tell there was an assumption that like the only people who had seen conflict were the non-Penn State students. I really wanted to explore that, but I was like, wait, I can't explore yet because we're still getting sociological information. So,
and I think that also like set the tone because when anybody shares their struggle, everyone thought that they had to answer the original question with like a struggle as intense as like one participant struggle. So it's like, how to bring it back to the original question and letting them answer their own way, not like relating to somebody else was hard.
Yeah, that was hard. And it still worked because, as we heard, there was some really intense stuff and we heard some really kind of light stuff. And I think it didn't say anything less about the sociological factors that were impacting their lives. So that was cool.
How was it just working with me? Like, I hope you felt like you had enough space. I thought you were asking some great questions. And I really appreciated you cutting off people.
Oh. Yeah, so I liked, I felt like it was a little like a kind of, I don't know how to say that. I would want to make an analogy, but I don't have an analogy, but I felt like you really were on top of a person. Like, like you had follow-up questions when a single person was talking. And I felt like we were taking turns a little bit with like each individual person rather than like each question. So that was like,
that's cool. True. That was nice because I could like sit back and like trust that, okay, no, you got this person actually. And for me, it was, I kept having to remind myself that like, no, ask where they're from. Like it was so easy to believe that I knew wherever they were talking about, but I had to keep being like, no, where are you talking about right now?
Yeah, same. Yeah, overall good stuff.
Emily.
Thanks, Sharon.
All right. Thank you, Emma and Sheffy, for facilitating. Now we're going to transition to talking about what you all just experienced. We're going to debrief. And my first question for debrief is, what did you not hear them ask? New facilitators. Remember last week we talked about what question we are definitely not asking, and I noticed your facilitators didn't ask it either. What question was that?
A question that I thought wasn't in the dialogue when Felix was talking and he mentioned that racism being more open, more accepted. I think there was more room for questioning this part of the dialogue, or Felix is part of the answer.
I think they didn't ask about like
Oh,
the
hold on.
the
I'm asking for a very specific question. Remember last week we talked about
I think
we're not
I
going to
know
ask
it.
these. Okay, who knows it? Go ahead.
I think,
I
was it
yeah.
like the how does this make you feel? Was it that question?
Yes. Yep. So throughout the entire process, they asked you a lot of questions. None of them were about your feelings.
Factors
Okay, so remember that.
which
We're
impact
not
you.
talking about feelings today. How does it impact you? Yep, that's a different
Yeah.
question than how do
That's,
you feel.
mm.
Okay, so what did they ask though? What questions did you hear them ask?
I would say they often directed their questions to the main question. So as for us to respond to that question with whatever we're going to say. So kind of say
ايوه
the
ها
same
ابو
thing we
احمد
said, but modifying it to answer the question.
كاك احمد
Yeah, there was a really cool moment where Emma was, I think it was Karwan
كاك
that
اللي
was
برابر
talking, and
عمو ده
Emma
كله
was
بيننا
like,
خمان وما
um,
ماما
she said, you're
بس من
describing a
كنا
lot of
ندورك ها
things. How would you say that as an
ايوه
answer
صح
to the original question? There was a lot of times that they said, what's your initial answer to the original prompt? It's really important for you all in that first 25 minutes to keep them focused on the original prompt. And remember that you'll have time to examine something in the later half of the dialogue. What were some other things that you heard?
I saw like they made sure that everybody has like different response. So if someone tried to expand on someone else's response, they kind of like cut them off and said like, "What's your original
yeah
response to that question?" And they also made sure where everybody is coming from. So like they wanted to have like the exact location of that person.
That's like
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead,
that's such a
Delali.
no, that's such a great observation moment. That's really great. And also, if you guys notice it, when you ask for like an initial, like the initial answer, you're also helping to not set a tone of kind of how everyone answers in a similar way, so that you really can see where everyone is coming from. Yeah. What about other people? Other initial or other questions the facilitators asked?
It seemed to me like it was very individualized at first. Like, what is the struggle that's going on in your individual community, like within yourself, like not really relating it to another person's questions, and even like moments had like cutting them off if they were trying to do that. But then once there was enough like data so that there was a pattern of like, oh, it seems like a lot of people from this area are talking about like conflict and this level of conflict. Is that an assumption that we're making? So then kind of like thinking out loud what probably a lot of people in the room were thinking like, oh yeah, this does seem to be like a pattern, like a trend that is arising, and like just addressing it. Like even if
Victor,
nobody yes.
there's something that you said that I don't want to lose, and you said the word struggle. I'm so glad you said that. It came up a few times in the dialogue, and what tends to happen when we start to, look at the world more sociologically, is we start to attribute sociological factors to struggles. And the way that we are going to talk about it and the way that we're going to examine it in this dialogue is it's not a struggle. It is a sociological factor that has shaped and impacted the individual that you're talking to, right? And it's so easy when Momen talks for the way that our brains have been wired for us to be like, oh, that's a struggle, that's a struggle. Yes, it is a difficult time, but as sociologists, the way that we're going to look at it is that is a sociological factor that has shaped his life. Any questions about that? Any comments about that?
I just have not comment, something I found it in this class today. Maybe my reason or my neighborhood's noisy, it is very simple and still if I compare it with moments causes, because the moment his location, it is very difficult uh, it is very different with my education. So my reason, if I'm talking about kids noisy or a lot of sounds outside my home, it is very silly if I comparing the moments. What can I say? Nature or something like this.
Yeah, that is a. Oh, so go ahead, Emma. Oh no, Esther, that's a really great reflection. Also, just seeing like thinking more about like the sociological factors of what's around you and how you would apply that, to your answer. Yeah, yeah. Um, Emma, did you want to add something?
Just like one other thing I was seeing about like the something I saw in the dialogue was that the moments that we might consider to be struggles or difficult moments say as much about our sociology as the moments that are not struggles or are very easy or say other things about our lived experience. And so there is a tendency to want to like relate to each other or kind of feel like you're either sharing or relating to a struggle. But that's what we've been taught to do. But in these dialogues, we actually don't have to do that. We actually want to find the differences. So.
And speaking of the differences, real quick, because we don't have a lot of time, I just want to hear just popcorn or say out loud. You don't have to ask me if you can respond. What are some sociological factors that you heard or you learned about the people in this dialogue?
If I may jump in, Carlos said that he had a single parent and he grew up in a poor neighborhood. That's like these two are like big sociological factors, I think.
Yeah, thank you for kicking us off. What's up, Carlos? Go ahead.
Wait, hold on. I don't think I explained myself too well then. I mean, my mom did well for herself though. Like, it wasn't maybe working class. I just want to say.
Carlos, so this is so great because this would be an assumption that Momin would make as a facilitator and would give the participant an opportunity to correct themselves. So that's a great moment. But Carlos, what did you learn? What sociological things did you hear?
I learned more about, I guess, I mean, like, I feel like a lot of the time as an American student, you'll mostly focus on like America's sociological like factors, but learning about like the more international perspective was really interesting.
What's like sorry, Delali, real quick. One specific sociological thing you learned, and it doesn't have to be specific to a person, but it could just be like a big word that you learn.
The conflict there.
Awesome. Great. Go ahead, Delali.
Oh no, I was just gonna ask the same question to Carlos. But yes, other people, sociological factors.
May I jump?
Go ahead.
So something that I learned in this dialogue was the problems will change when the places will change, also the problems will change. If you note Isra and Mumin or Karwan, for example, Isra born with a kid's sound, but in the same time, Karwan and Mumin, they growed with a bomb sound, for example. So it's need too much time to discuss, for example, the difference between both of them.
One more, go ahead, Shahad.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking like about how we always, like, from our side, assume a certain thing about America, but like when Maddie talked about how like they cannot walk from one place to another, I'm like, wow, we actually just assumed something completely the other way. We thought like it's like a freer community. So like a sociological aspect of that is just like the community and how it's shaped and how it works. That was something very interesting to learn about. Like I want to put that up there.
Yeah. So for the sake of time, we're going to have to stop our debrief, but just for any dialogue, every dialogue, there's so much that you can talk about that happened afterwards. So in the last 15 minutes of your dialogue, start having conversation, or not your dialogue, of your time on the calendar. So after your dialogue, after the participants have left, start having conversations about what you noticed, what how you've facilitated sociological things that you learned, and we'll continue to build on other things that you can ask about after the dialogue. But for now, just start pointing out some of the things that you noticed.
Wow, you were all paying attention. Emma and I, we felt seen. We're like, yeah, they were paying attention to us. This is awesome. So we're gonna expand out a little bit into just the role of a facilitator. Let's talk a little bit about just what that is, especially in the first 25 minutes. All right, but let's hear from you first. Just you've all been part of dialogues, from your experiences, what do you assume is the role of a facilitator? With all the information that you're starting to gather, you've had some workshops with us. What are you starting to assume about what is the role of a facilitator?
For me, throughout all the sessions that we've had, all of us together, I think that the role of a facilitator is someone that allows those who are unheard / unseen to be heard and seen, and to give enough time to set people, to get them on the spotlight. That's one. I'm trying to give room for the others.
Yes, so that's a part of it.
Well,
Maddie, what would you say?
I was gonna say, like, I think it's more of like guiding the conversation, so like making sure everyone like focuses in on like the question at hand, and then like making sure everyone can answer it, and like not get detracted and like from the, I guess, like prompt.
Yeah. Staying focused on hand. Yeah. Yes, Shahid?
I was just saying, like facilitators are the ones who ask the questions that are feared to ask, the ones that make you uncomfortable. So they are like the ones that go in to know like the actual sociological factors of that person.
What was an example? Is there a question that Emma and I asked that could have been, like, maybe participants would have been afraid to ask that or not go into it?
I mean, I have to think about it.
Okay.
Is there anyone one you can say, like, when you asked how he experienced racism, I think a participant wouldn't want to bring up racism, especially in the U.S. during these times.
Yeah. Like, your participants will have questions for each other, and in the role of facilitator, one thing that we say is that you're going to assume more risk for the dialogue, as in you're going to ask questions that might be risky, but are really essential to ask so that we can not talk around it, but actually steer into something. What else?
The facilitator, by the meaning and the things that we study till now, is somebody like a judge, but not a judge, who doesn't judge, partial, who facilitates and makes the conversation or the dialogue easy for the surroundings, and has to dive deep into the conflicts and the things that they're discussing. That's for me. That's the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to go ahead and list, we'll send this in your recap email too, but also just list some things that, one, actually you already told us, but I'm just going to say it out loud. So some things that facilitators do are pay attention to patterns and responses from participators. Can somebody tell me a moment in which we connected two participants in this dialogue, but without making them relate to each other? What was something that, I think it was what was a factor that I took from one person and asked a question based off of it, but I wasn't asking them to relate to each other.
So when I was talking about like my childhood, so you said like moment I've been talking about conflict, but like how like Penn State's people or American people would like respond to that, like what kind of conflict they had. I'm not sure about this,
Mm-hmm.
but I just noticed that.
Mm-hmm. What else? I'm just gonna go ahead and say it for the sake of time. Like Maddie, when we had talked about the fact that she needs a car to get around, so I kind of just used that information to weave it in. So I was like, so just like Maddie needs a car to get around, like, do you need a car to get around in your neighborhood? I think I was asking it to Aisha. So just like start facilitators in the beginning start to Felix, you said this. They start to pay attention to the data that they're collecting and start connecting participants to that data and asking questions. So in the beginning, you're not going to have a lot of data. So it's like, let's just keep asking the original question. But as you get more data, start to connect participants without necessarily making them relate to each other. Because remember, we're not trying to have them relate. We're trying to see them as
sociological factors.
yes, but not similar. So we're not trying to see how they're similar. We're trying to see how people are
Different.
different in dialogue. So we're actually doing the opposite of trying to relate. We're trying to get to see, okay, if Maddie needs a car in her community to get to school, I wonder what Maya needs, or I wonder how it's different for this person. So we're always trying to see differences. All right. So facilitators were thinking out loud. Like that moment was great. So when Carlos, when Moment made an assumption, that would be a great place for a facilitator to say, so if you're saying this, I'm assuming this is true. And then Carlos gets the opportunity to debunk that assumption and actually clarify, right? Facilitators cut people off so everyone can talk. People who talk a lot don't mind being cut off because they're used to it. If somebody's talking a lot in your dialogue, that's not unique to that dialogue. They probably talk a lot in their other social groups. And they're really actually used to being cut off, and they're used to talking. People that are silent in your dialogues or more quiet, they most likely assume that role in their conversations outside too. So people are not showing up in your dialogue being different than who they are in the world. They're bringing that to the dialogue. So you're not being rude if you cut off somebody that's talking a lot. Facilitators make sure that everybody gets a chance to say something. All right. And in the first 25 minutes, just like Emma and I were talking in our debrief, our role is to see the participants from sociological factors to get information. You have to resist the urge to explore a topic. It was really hard, but you just have to resist it.
Sharif, if I may. So, like we as humans, like we're by nature not good listeners, right? So, like in like almost a 2-hour dialogue, like how do we stay focused as much as possible? Like what can we do to stay focused? I know like this is like a general question, but I always get distracted. So, what's your advice on that?
Yeah, well, luckily it's 90 minutes, right? So just know that you have 15 before and 15 after, but just for 90 minutes, it's just practice. That's why we never want to have a facilitator. We always want to have two, because you have to have each other's backs. So again, teamwork is really important. So this is a good example of when a facilitator is not paying attention to their calendar or something and doesn't show up to a dialogue. One person alone has to pay attention for 90 minutes, and that's really hard. So there's no easy way. Just practice, focus, just listen, just stay into you. There's gonna be moments you're gonna lose focus, but just
just take note of the things that tend to distract you and try to remove those from your environment too. I just will recommend that right away. Just if you can get yourself an environment the least distracting possible, that will serve you really well.
And I'm so excited to give you all some like key takeaways for this. So, one, make it the participants' conversation, not yours. When I say that, can one person just give me what you're understanding from that?
Well, you have to start the dialogue, you and your co-facilitator, and then pave the way to the participants to start the dialogue. You only open the head of the subjects, and it is not your dialogue to participate. It's your dialogue to lead.
Exactly. Yep. So the most important part of that, it is not your dialogue to participate in. We will give you dialogue space like we did today for you all to participate in. But when you're facilitating, you have on the role of the facilitator. So we want you all to practice what you understand about neutrality and don't offer any of your opinions or perspectives. Okay? Go ahead, Aisha.
Yeah. I have a question. I'm a little bit afraid of this point. In which place it should to ask to more detail. For example, when I say we have 6 cars, Emma asked about me. Yani how member in your family have a cars or something like that?
Can you ask your question again? Maybe I just didn't understand it.
In which place we should to ask more detail?
So like, how do you know when to ask more details?
Yeah, I need to know.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to ask Emma to answer that. So like, Emma, when you were facilitating, how did you know when you needed to ask more details?
Well, I mean, I was trying to gather sociological information. So whenever, like, think about when we debrief after class and we ask, what kind of sociological information did you get when we heard from Victor, for example? And then if we can think like, well, I kind of got that he moved around, his family moved, he wanted to walk to school. It was really crowded. He moved from the city. So I could answer that question in my mind because we heard enough information from Victor. But if all we know about them is, if we don't know enough information to be able to answer that question, then I would keep asking questions to try to get a glimpse. And we'll never get everything, but we can at least answer some of those questions.
Thank you.
All right, and in 30 seconds, I'm going to give you the last 2 takeaways. Okay, so pay attention to group dynamics and relationships. What we mean by that is pay attention to the tone of individuals, which participants are talking a lot, which participants are silent, body language, connections, who is connecting to things, who isn't connecting to things. And we'll keep on saying more about this, and there'll be more about it in your recap email. And last, set the tone of the dialogue. So naturally, when people walk into a space or people join a Zoom call and they see you as the facilitator, they're looking at you for leadership. So they're going to match whatever energy you bring to the dialogue. Start the dialogue out with enthusiasm, excitement, saying people's names. Remember, when you say someone's name, that's like their most favorite thing to hear. So even if you just are starting your dialogues with, good morning, Razar, or good afternoon, Razar, or hi, Dalali, all of a sudden people just feel a little bit more natural in the space. Okay, so it's 10:20. You all are free to go. As always, you're welcome to stay if you have any other questions. Post other questions in your Slack channel as well. And I just one thing about your Slack channel, friends, it's not just a space for your trainers to respond to you. You all can respond to each other. I was cutting out, but I don't know if everyone heard me. But all right, 10:21. Get out of here. Bye.
Have a good evening. Have a good
Thank
morning.
you.
Have a good
Bye.
day.
Enjoy your morning, everyone. It was a nice
Thank you,
session.
guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I
Bye.
actually have a question.
Yes? What is your question, Shannon?
I was checking the calendar, and tomorrow I'm facilitating, if I'm not mistaken. And I just wanted to know, who am I facilitating exactly? Like what like country, or am I facilitating our side, someone else? I don't know the exact details. I kind of don't like going blind, so just like want to have an idea, I guess.
Yeah. It's
Does
this
that
one
not show
is
on the
not.
calendar?
It
It should be.
it should, but
It should
this
show
one
on your
specifically
calendar.
does not.
That's interesting.
7, but that should be with. It's Tuesday, 7:45. Do you know off the top of your head who that would be with?
That's
Uh,
I see.
You know what?
I can check the calendar right now.
Wait 1 second. This is a Shahid on Slack. Could you DM direct message JD? So at JD and ask him the question, and then he'll also then know that this specific calendar invitation doesn't have location. It should always have a location.
Okay. Should I add my co-facilitator as well? I think it's Carlos.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Yeah, check in with Carlos, but ask JD and Taylor that this is a place where you just send them the message.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
And just go ahead and tell him that it's not on the calendar, because he'll probably tell you. If you don't say that, his first response will be that it's on the calendar.
I think Carlos, he's with me. My facilitator on Thursday. Be sure.
You are also with Carlos later this week, Esra.
Yeah.
We're both with Carlos.
Yeah.
I'm checking right now.
Carlos is
Sure.
very lucky.
And can I ask a question for the trainers? So, though it is kind of disappointing that I am not due till next week, but for the dialogues, to facilitate the dialogue, you guys, if I'm not mistaken, said you have to arrive 15 minutes before the dialogue starts. So you kind of speak with your facilitator, co-facilitator, and break the ice and speak about your strategies and mechanisms. So can you speak about that a bit more so I can have a grasp on the subject?
So for whenever you check in with your co-facilitator, and remember that time is already built into the time. So as long as you arrive by the Google Calendar time, you'll be great. Just really focus on asking how they're doing. If there's anything you need to know about how they're doing and how ready they are to facilitate, and talk about the signpost. So go to the questions on the signpost and really think about what kind of sociological factors might come up by asking this question. What are some thoughts that you have around this signpost? Really try to use it as a way to get familiar with the signpost with your co.
And another thing, the first dialogue that, like if I'm not mistaken, was a week ago, you and Chaluvia tried to simulate a dialogue environment when Shefi told you guys to do that. It was kind of different from the signpost, like it was not fully by the book. You guys, there was like kind of a harmony between you guys. So the signpost, if you go by the book, it is, sorry for saying that, but it's kind of robot-like. Like you just say the lines. It is kind of specific. So it is better to be like some random stuff, like you and your co-facilitator introducing yourself, guys, and like maybe start with a joke to normalize the environment and things like that.
Like Karban, just only because I gotta get out, and I'm just gonna say this. The signpost, if you feel like a robot doing like the signpost, like the introduction, that's okay. Emma and Chalvia were in harmony because they've had many years of practice in doing this work. So one, there's that. The joke, the building rapport, all that becomes before the introduction. But after that, just practice following the signpost. I gotta head out, so anything that you ask, I know that the ladies have got you.
Have a good time.
And Karwan, I will say that Emma and I read the signpost verbatim. We didn't add anything or take anything away. It's because we practiced it a lot. And because of that, it makes it feel a little bit more natural and not as robotic.
You can still say things before, greet everyone, make your little jokes, if whatever it is that you need to do to like set the tone for the dialogue. But when it's time to read that introduction, that's when you do verbatim, and then the rest is, you know, yours. So
Yeah, actually, I'm totally doing that because if you
okay,
want
great.
to have a great work environment or education environment, you have to put some humor in it, not just like a dry, husky environment, things like this. It's kind of
Right.
so. The other thing, like let's say 10th September 10th, Isra starts at 3:45. So do I come at like if I am due at 3:45, do I come at that exact time or maybe 15 minutes earlier?
Yeah, that time on the calendar is 15 minutes before the dialogue starts.
Okay.
So that's the time when you want to come at the time of the dialogue.
Okay, thank you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna
Yes,
go
good.
now. So thank you guys
Okay,
today
bye,
for
Shaha.
reading, and just have a great day.
Have a
You
good day,
too.
guys.
Thanks, you
Bye.
too. Bye, everyone.
Good luck, guys.
Bye.